Welcome, everybody, to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are here to pay the bills. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's get it started right away. Jake Micah, as joined by my co-host Mike Partham, Maniac jumping in, and intern Carson. We're here. We've got the squad together, swerving while we driving, and really just we needed to have a safe space. Serenity Now event session. It's Bill's Festivus. It's time to air the grievances. That's really all we could do today. And Mike, I feel like we need to start with Mike, who has just been despondent. Literally, since we opened the stream, Mike joined in and he hasn't said a word to us at all. He's just been sitting there head down for about 25 minutes. So Mike, we've been waiting to hear from you. How you doing?
Well, let's just say there's a lot of good content creators out there that I personally know that we're all fans of, and they specialize in a lot of things. Some guys have a lot of insightful commentary, such as maybe Sal Capaccio of WGR 550 or Bruce Nolan of the Buffalo Rumblings Network. There are some guys who specialize in all 22 breakdowns, like our guys Aaron and Greg over at Cover One, or maybe Pat Moran or Joe Marino at Locked On Bills. And there's another guy out there, a personal friend of mine, Drew from the Rockpile Report. And one of his specialties is the airing of the grievances annually around Christmas time. Well, guess what? We're not waiting for goddamn Christmas time. We're airing the damn grievances now. We got a lot of problems with the Bills, and now they're going to hear about them, if they haven't already this week, from everybody else that has a podcast and a radio show. So let's go.
That's perfectly set up. How are you feeling, Carson?
I mean, I don't even know where to start, because during the whole game, I never thought, like, there was never real doubt in my mind we were going to lose the football game. It was just kind of laughable how bad we were playing. I'm like, okay, just another game. We'll figure it out. We'll sneak it out and get the win. And then me and a few buddies had a real close fantasy football matchup going on. So I was more focused on that in the fourth quarter. And all of a sudden, once the matchup got out of hand and, like, Denver was driving in that last drive, like, I started to get really nervous. Obviously, they missed the field goal. I got so hyped. I don't think I've ever came down from such a high to a low so fast. And I was just mad for the next half hour, led into, the next day. But I'm simmered down a little bit more, but there's a lot of problems still. It's going to be a fun one today.
Maniac, you had a great Trainwreck Tonight episode yesterday with Chris Trapasso, where you guys aired some grievances. But I feel like we saw another day of interview availability. Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, Von Miller talking to the media. We've heard from national media, Rob Gronkowski, Stephen A. Smith always jumping in. It's been a couple of days, so we wanted to get this live up here right away to kind of just get all our thoughts out. So how are you feeling another day removed from the loss on Monday night?
You know, anytime the Bills win, I can't wait to hear these guys talking during the week. Can't wait to hear the updates. Can't wait to hear, the jibber jabber back and forth. But now I feel like the Bills' parents. It's like, I don't want to hear any more words. I want to see actions. I am not going to believe any more words. I want to see actions. And speaking of being a parent, Carson, confident that whole game that we were going to win it. My sweet summer child. I mean, everyone from the drought knew that we were going to lose that game some way, somehow. And not only did they do it, like you said, they lost it in the most painful way imaginable. I didn't even get to celebrate because I watched the field goal go just wide, and I looked down, and that ref right below the friggin' field goal post is throwing the flag. I see everyone jumping up all around me. I'm the one there pissed who's got to tell them there's nothing to celebrate, and then another chip shot is coming. I'm pissed. There's a lot to air out. There's a lot I'm going to be pissed about. Let's get it going.
Yeah, I was a little bit with Carson. I was into the fourth quarter, and then it was maybe like 10 minutes left, and something innate in me, the nerves just hit, and I was like, oh man, this is gonna get disaster level. I think we need to start. I don't even know where to start, I guess. But go ahead, Mike. You can start.
Maniac, you mentioned a lot of the stuff we'd like to listen to. A lot of content creators often mention that shows after Bills wins are generally the most positive. I find that kind of strange because I find it more cathartic to listen to everybody after Bills losses and just hear all the venting and all the analytics about what went wrong. If we win the game, then what's really to listen to? Everything generally goes right and we come out happy and we can revel in that a little bit, but there's not much to break down other than Josh Allen threw all the touchdowns and the defense made all the stops, etc. After games like this is when I want to hear content creators come out and just, take this team apart and dissect them down to the bare bones.
I agree. This is where the Shope and the Bulldogs, this is where the Biscaglias and the Beaufays make their killing for sure. But I'm ready to kill this roster. I don't know why you're delaying us, Partham. Are you not ready to air grievances right now? You look like you're ready to air your soul out at the beginning of the soul.
We're doing it right now. Let's just break it down bit by bit, Jacob. What do you want to start with?
I'll start with my first tweet that I sent during the game. I hate Gabe Davis, and I think I'm just going to stick with that. I wrote an article about a month ago that was titled "The Bills Are in an Existential Crisis," and that was the start of the article. I should have changed the headline after, but maybe just somewhere deep down, I knew that there were some deep problems. But my main issue was in that blog was about the lack of weapons for Josh Allen, and that you can't expect, with however good a scheme is, sometimes you just need Jimmys and Joes, and that he's been put into this position for what? Because he had maybe my airing of actually my first grievance is I've seen so many damn clips of 13 seconds game the last couple of days, and so many people being like, man, this was our peak, this was our year, all this other stuff. And I think that is my biggest problem with the Bills fan base. If that's how the Bills have been thinking, all that shit, because you know what? They lost. And Gabe Davis had the best game of his life, maybe, that he'll ever have. He's going to be chasing that moment, I imagine, for the rest of his NFL career. And my biggest thing in sports is you cannot, as a roster and as a team, and if you're as a GM, whatever, is hold on to past memories of success. And I feel like I've done too much deflecting over the past 2 years, whether it's Brandon Beane, whether it's the players on this roster. You talk about a Dawson Knox, who's been pretty much average for 2 years now without Brian Dable, whether it's Gabe Davis, who I think we can all say does not qualify as a wide receiver 2 that you'd want to see on this team, at least for what we expect from this offense. I think that's my biggest issue. So whether it's with Brandon Beane, whether it's with Gabe Davis not developing who we think we are, I have a huge problem with Captain Gabe Davis not being willing to speak to the media after a loss. That's for damn sure. So I think my first grievance is with Gabe Davis, because I feel like if there's a point in this game where it's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmys and Joes. And the Bills wanted him to be, or expected him to be, a compliment. I saw so much stuff. Oh, he's wide receiver 1B. All this like that. He was going to be in this role, and it's never happened. And Josh Allen has to play. I don't know if he has to. That's another grievance we could get to. he's tried to play like a Superman, like a superhero all the time. And if you have a guy that can just get open consistently outside of Stephon Diggs, and Dalton Kincaid's been great at that this year too. But a guy on the outside who could do that, these things would be a lot easier. Maybe they're 7-3 right now. I don't know if that's the difference, but these margins are so slim. And I feel like that man has been miscast in this role. So that's my first person I'm airing anything. Any thoughts about Gabe Davis? Anything else? Or do you guys just want to go around the horn here and add on, Parthy?
We've known for a while what Gabe Davis is. He's a deep threat with a very limited route tree that a lot of opposing cornerbacks have said are very easy to figure out, and we can count on him for one easy, not necessarily easy, but hit him on the hands drop pass every other game or so. And I don't know why it surprises us why, every drop pass by a receiver is a chance for someone to intercept it. So it was inevitable to happen to Gabe at some point. He's not being re-signed, not for the amount of money he wants. If he wants to stick around for less money because he wants to contribute to this team and develop as a receiver and play a wide receiver 3 role, then fine. But he's not wide receiver 2 material. He shows flashes of it, but he's not consistent enough to do this. So, I mean, and on top of all that, it'd be one thing if you're just not living up to your potential productivity. It's another thing to just shrink from the spotlight when you're responsible partly, however much of a piece of a pie there is, for this ineptitude of the Bills offense. As much as it can move the ball and all these metrics, EVA, DVOA, RNA, DNA, you can take them all and shove them because we're not scoring. So however much you contribute to the productivity, you're not contributing to the scoring. And at the end of the day, if he can't be as productive as a wide receiver 2 should be, he should either take a backseat to somebody who is going to be, or just find another place that's going to pay him.
Yeah, Gabe Davis needs to overcome this adversity that he's clearly going through in this season, especially. I mean, you do look at his career numbers. Is he just a 600 to 800 yard, 6 to 7 touchdown guy? By the way, speaking of overcoming adversity, shout out to Carson, who was just looking like Diglett there for a minute with the graphic in front of his face, but that's okay. But Carson, I'm curious your thoughts on Captain Gabe Davis not speaking to the media after that performance.
So first, I do want to backtrack on one thing. Like,
you haven't even started on anything. How can you backtrack?
He runs like 3 good routes. He runs your 12 to 10 curl. He runs your post. There's like one other route that he ran. There's some tracker that I saw that proved that. But as far as his captaincy, not talking to the media, as a captain, I was team captain this year for a high school team. Obviously not to the same extent, but you're out there to serve and back up your guys, whether it's, through the highs of the season, the lows. And I feel like I get, the interviews and stuff can definitely get dreadful, after a devastating loss like that. And he obviously feels probably that, he didn't play his greatest game. But I feel an interview then you have to take as a team captain, because it's an opportunity for, one, yourself to back yourself up a little bit. And 2, more importantly in the team, is to express confidence in, your teammates. And him not doing that, just, I don't know, it just shows to me that it just seems like it's more mental right now, like in the locker room, and that him declining an interview, it shows to me that that's part of it.
I was going to say, it seems like Gabe Davis is being a little bit more of a J. Bruce Ismay than a Captain Smith, if you know what I'm saying. But this ship will not be a Titanic, Partham. I do have faith in Brady, but yeah, you have to air the grievances on Gabe, because obviously you got to think the performance of Stephon has been steady. He had a 3-touchdown game earlier this season, only a month and a half ago, even though it feels like a year ago. But besides that, these tertiary weapons need to start performing. So obviously Gabe Davis is the leader of that, given the way that this team is constructed, Parthy.
Or these tertiary weapons need to be schemed in. Like it took a Dawson Knox injury for Dawson. Geez, I'm confusing all these guys. For Kincaid to even smell, productivity the way we expected him to. How many running backs have we drafted or tried to sign or attempted to sign that were supposed to be these pass catching options that, Dorsey wasn't integrating into the system? And we can get into Dorsey and all the problems we had with him going out the door. But it's one thing to have all these weapons. It's another thing to know how to utilize them. And that's one of the things that Joe Brady's going to have to learn going forward. And we're going to have to count on him to do.
You want to talk about Ken Dorsey?
Let's
You
talk
got
Ken
any thoughts
Dorsey
there,
one last
Bartham?
time. Let's give him a send-off. Let's give him his wake or whatever you want to say.
I'll air a grievance with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen for lying to us too, because there's a lot of quotes like this. Oh, Gabe Davis isn't wide receiver 2. He's a compliment. I won't put a ceiling on Gabe Davis. I'll gladly put a ceiling. But that's it. That's the last of Gabe Davis. Let's go into Ken Dorsey. How you feel, Mike?
Ken Dorsey. I mean, how many times have we said the same things over and over again? We should be going under center, not shotgun. We should be using motion. We should be using play action. We should be going up a little more up tempo more often rather than the start and the end of games. And we won't know what's going on inside those coaches' meetings until, people start leaving this organization. They start, singing like pigeons or whatever. Was it Sean McDermott's idea to make the offense in this image, or was it Ken Dorsey's inexperience? And I mean, Dan Orlovsky's out there saying this is the easiest team to prepare for offensively, and that speaks volumes. I mean, we should expect this team to do better, at least this next game against the Jets, as formidable as a defense as they are. I remember I heard Eric Wood saying that it's not uncommon. It's a real thing that players do play better under new coordinators and coaches. You look at the Raiders just a couple weeks ago, because they want to go out there and they want to have it was him and not us mentality, however justified that is. And
I think that's very fair, but and especially the reason, like you said, that coordinators tend to come in and have success is because they kind of probably dumb things down to what is successful. I mean, obviously Brady has been off to the side, seeing that establishing, effective play action has been strong. When Josh Allen moves in the pocket, when you move his pocket, that's a strong move for the Bills offense. And a designed run here or there is not going to break our franchise QB. So I'm looking forward to seeing those things from Brady. But yeah, you weren't seeing those things with Dorsey. You weren't seeing the motion pre-snap to be effective in getting guys open or identifying coverage. You weren't seeing the deep balls as, effectively, I guess, as they were under Dable. I don't know. They were kind of good in 2022, but they were kind of missing the last month and a half. And that's what really was the ultimate downfall. I mean, NFL is a week-to-week league, but when you put 6 weeks together of sketchy offense, people are kind of questioning. And really, overall, it was the first half offense that was super sketchy, Parthy.
Josh Allen under center on Monday Night Football, 4 for 4, 61 yards and a touchdown. Out of shotgun, 11 of 21, 116 yards, 2 pickoffs. That pretty much says it all.
With that kind of volume, you just got to get under center more, just a little bit more. It doesn't even have to be a crazy amount more. You're talking about 2 to 3 snaps.
Allen feels comfortable or not. Regardless of whether Allen feels comfortable or not under center, someone, maybe not literally, but someone has to get him by the face mask and say, hey, we're going to do what we do best and not what you feel comfortable with. And you've got to just suck it up because you're the quarterback and you're the leader of this team, and you got to lead by example.
It's funny to see still, like, I saw Nate Tice, I think I saw Mina Kimes coming in defense of Dorsey and being like, but look at the EPA numbers, look at the third down efficiency, look at the red zone efficiency. And it's like they haven't, maybe they haven't watched a full Bills game this whole year, but we've talked about this the last couple of weeks, Partham. The issue has not been the underlying statistics, whatever. Like, we know that the offense has like a high floor. That's because of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I think any of us could come in and run an offense, and when you have that much talent, like we said earlier, X's and O's and Jimmys and Joes, sometimes if you have 2 guys who have elite talent, they're just going to be able to produce at a certain level. And there's been a lot of things to like about this offense this year, but it's been situationally. It's been in moments where, when you have a Dan Orlovsky being like, this is the most predictable offense in the NFL. This is something that we talked about the last couple of weeks. Like, it's not that Dorsey, they weren't running successful plays or being able to move down the field or whatever else. It's that it seemed like he was looking at the game script and just calling it out right down the line, or like, oh, this is our 3rd and 10 shot play, let's run this right now. Like, there was no creativity. It seemed like situationally and in these moments, he didn't have answers. He never had counters. Like, he was just going to stick to whatever it was. And one of the things that Allen brought up today was lack of communication, whether that's leading up to the week of or on game day. And Carson, I want to, what do you think about that? Like, how can there be a lack of communication between an offensive coordinator and their quarterback. Like, how could that be cited as an issue? Like, I feel like if anything, there should be over communication all the time between these two. So how does a lack of communication end up happening with those two?
Yeah, I mean that can't happen at the NFL level. Like even at high school, like me and my offensive coordinator, like we'd go back and forth on a lot of different things, motion, shifts, stuff like that. Like they'll obviously probably go through film together, quarterback room, and then the offensive team meetings and stuff like that. But as far as game plan stuff goes, I want to say they probably did it together, like every team does. But it's more so like when you're in between series, Dorsey being up, in the booth, this might have something to do with it too. Like when you're on the field, you typically have more communication with your quarterback compared to in the booth, but in the booth, you get a better view. It's just, the pros and cons. But I feel during, in between drives, they could have definitely done a lot better job for what Josh was seeing. And I thought what he wanted, I thought there could have been a lot better, communication probably going into the opening drives. I feel like it's been up and down, with our drives for opening script series and stuff like that. So I really think like that just can't happen in the NFL. It can't. And I'm excited for Joe Brady to take over. Obviously, him and Josh have a good relationship. So, hopefully this sparks something in the offense.
Yeah, I think that, like you guys mentioned, there's always a bump when it's a new coach, new energy, everything else. Like the guys feeling just a different voice going in there. And clearly this voice was not hitting anymore, whatever it is. But yeah, it's baffling to me that there can be a lack of communication, especially at the NFL level. But I think we need to get to the main crux here. We got to talk Sean McDermott maniac. The boys on the hot seat at this point. There's been some articles dropping. It's heating up a little bit.
I mean, for sure, you'd be crazy not to think it's heating up. But yeah, the Bills as a team are what? I mean, when was the last time a McDermott team lost 3 of 4? I don't even think in 2019 they lost 3 of 4. So it's been at least 4 years since a stretch this bad, quote unquote. Yeah, but I mean, he's got to pull himself out of it. You got to stick to your guns. Stick to what's working. I think the defense is okay. You do want to get more pressure. You're not going to do it by blitzing, so you got to work those 4-man fronts. I don't know if we have to play Von Miller a little bit less. I know he's already not playing that much, but, our tribal chief, AJ Epinesa, I'm not airing any grievances with him. He's been doing his part this season. I think if you told anyone the production you're getting out of AJ Epinesa this season, you would think, oh, my gosh, the Bills are going to the Super Bowl when you factor in all the other factors. But instead, he's kind of been the one along with Rousseau and Oliver keeping that defense afloat. And that's what McDermott needs to do. He needs to just stick to the defensive side of things. Shut the fuck up about the offense. If you're even thinking about it, talking about it, just don't do it because there's nothing to gain. McDermott, there's nothing to gain on offense. You are not making the offense more aggressive. If Joe Brady says punt and you say go for it, that's the only time you should be like jumping in on him. Besides that, let Joe Brady cook and let Josh Allen just do his thing. But yeah, McDermott, I mean, he's struggled to get to this point. Clearly, you don't get to a hot seat without fucking up, and they've been fucking up in a big way this last month and a half.
What do you guys think, Partham? I'll start with you about the subculture within the culture of the Buffalo Bills.
Oh my goodness! Wait, so we're franchising our cultures now? I mean, this.
It's punk rock. That's what he wants. The Bills are rock and roll.
He wants the NWO black and white B team or something?
That's what we're getting.
Oh, no. Is the offense NWO Wolfpack?
Let's go.
Listen.
That was before your time by like 20 years.
Yeah, it was.
Listen, Sean McSchottenheimer, as I recall, was hired on his detail-oriented approach. Then what do we get after that? We get Nathan Peterman. We get a 16-point lead blown versus the Texans. We got no explanation to this day for 13 seconds. And now the latest debacle is 12 men. I mean, is McDermott the tie rod of coaches? You can win with him, but you'll not win because of him. Does he have a limit? Does he have a ceiling? Here he is repeating the mistakes of so many coaches of the past, both Bills and non-Bills. He's calling cover zero blitzes, not one, but 2 plays in a row. I mean, you get a sack the first play, great. You get him in 3rd and 10. And he calls another one, and maybe you could say that it was defended well and it was just a crap rule for pass interference.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you're just inviting Greg Williams got fired as the defensive coordinator for the Jets for this exact same thing, calling a cover zero blitz at the waning seconds of a game. 12 men in the field, that's the Rex Ryan special. Go in reverse. Rex had 10 men on the field, but at least they don't call penalties for 10 men on the field. We won the game with Rex Ryan out there as coach in that particular instance. And then firing Ken Dorsey, I recall Rex Ryan firing an offensive coordinator, Greg Moman, after a week 2 game when they gave up 37 points and scored 31, as if the offense was the problem at that point. And here's the laundry list of coordinators and assistant coaches that McDermott has fired, including Rick Dennison, Danny Crossman, Frazier, and now Dorsey. At this point, he's running out of coaches to fire, and he's basically going to point the gun at himself, whether he knows it or not.
Spin zone. I'm angry about McDermott, but I got to jump in here. Sure. Dennison was lining Mike Tolbert out wide. Michael Hartman. Okay. Fine. Bottom line. Case closed. I don't have to say anything more. Leslie Frazier, did he deserve to get fired? No. But I would argue that the defense we were seeing the first 5 weeks before they sustained crazy injuries was looking a little bit improved versus what we were seeing Leslie Frazier with a lot of the same personnel. So again, I think McDermott's ass deserves to be hot just as much as anybody. It's in the jackpot for sure. But I do look at those things like getting rid of the coordinators. I don't think those are that big deal. That's kind of just happens in the NFL. That's why you have that 5-year rule, right? No team has ever had a coach or GM or whatever beyond 5 years. Yeah. Not win a Super Bowl and then eventually do it. That's why, because there's so much turnover and stuff like that. Now, with that said, the thing you are going to get out of McDermott is you're going to get an amazing defensive game plan that's at least going to put the other team in a phone booth for the first 20 to 30 minutes most of the time. Now, with that said, he needs someone on the offensive side to literally help him put the foot on the person's neck, on the other team's neck, when they get that advantage out the gate, when they get that strong start. They haven't been getting those strong starts on offense recently. That's been causing them to obviously struggle and playing from behind, not complimentary football as he's looking for. So listen, McDermott has a lot of fucking faults. And don't even get me started on the dumbass challenge in Cincinnati. Don't even get me started on the 12 men on the field after 2 timeouts in the last minute. He's got a lot of shit to over, but the degree of difference between what we have with McDermott and what we could achieve with him and Allen and someone who can put the offensive pedal to the metal. And people say Dable did that, but all the tertiary numbers, and you know this, Partham, show that the Dable offense struggled just as much as the Dorsey offense did at times. They were very identical in that way.
That's the one defense I'll have about Dorsey is that 2021, there were stretches where people were calling for Dable's head. Like
there was a 6-week stretch. Someone posted the details, points per game, yards per game, all the stats. They were basically identical. It's the November stretch from 2021. And it's that now again, I think Partham is a big fan of being like, well, there was the Buccaneers game, which was a shaft, and there was the
win game.
Patriots game with the win game. I get it, but that's the NFL. That's the NFL.
Part of my thing with that too is that if we're gonna give that high variance, that's why you can't give Ken Dorsey all this credit for having these great EPA and the great DVOA and everything, because the high variance belongs to Josh Allen. Who's the one consistent of these stretches and of these things? It's Allen, and we know the quarterback is inconsistent. That's what we've signed up for. It's like almost you can just clock it in that the graphic's going to come up during a Bills game that Josh Allen has the second most TDs since 2018, but he also has the most turnovers. Like, we know that that's the life we've been living. And so that's why I don't get the defenses of Dorsey, the pervert or whatever, the defenses that are so like, oh man, like this is never an issue. He hasn't been a problem at all, blah, 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 whatever. Because why are we not if we're going to give Allen blame, we have to give him more credit for what this offense has been for the last 4 years. And I feel like when everybody wants to rip on this Bills team, and it's outside media more than anything else, because I feel like Bills fans are too defensive over Allen. And that's why we get this like weird, like there's a middle ground with him that people need to get to. And I feel like that variance drives people's opinions too far one way or too far the other way. But he's been the consistent thing here, like in that variance. So I don't know, but the biggest complaint I think with McDermott and with Frazier, really, Leslie Frazier went gone, and this team used to be the one thing I'll agree with Gronk from that thing earlier is this team used to be more disciplined. This team used to be prepared. Leslie Frazier leaves, and this is the most unprepared, undisciplined team. And you saw a lot of stuff from people in the national media when Frazier got let go, resigned, whatever the hell happened there, that they're like, that guy was the steadying thing in that locker room. Like, there were a lot of people saying that, and there's a lot of people that poo-pooed that were like, whatever. Like, he has, because everybody was mad, obviously, for good reason was mad. But I feel like there was some credence to that at this point, because this has been an undisciplined, unprepared team to this point for
Well,
a large
McDermott's
stretch of
out
the
there
season.
saying that they prepared for that very field goal scenario.
He
running
should
out
have
on the
never
field.
said that. He never should have
That
said
made
that.
it worse. Like, what was he
Yeah.
thinking saying that would make it better?
And you know what? If we could demote McDermott, if that was a thing, we could demote head coaches to coordinators, I'd be perfectly happy with McDermott being a defensive coordinator for the rest of his tenure in Buffalo, aside from these particular big miscues in that last drive that should be fireable offenses anyway. But I'm perfectly fine with McDermott over Frazier as a defensive coordinator. I don't know that I'm fine with McDermott over Frazier as a leader, as someone to get those guys in the locker room to believe in him.
Yeah, man. Carson, how do you feel like just where are you at, I guess, with the Sean McDermott experience right now?
So, like, I'm just so sick and tired of the scapegoats. Like, you got Ken Dorsey, obviously, as of recently, but Leslie Frazier, I will say that I do have a source. I won't say who it is, but it's going to be accurate, that they let the safeties coach go as kind of a punishment for Frazier for kind of just what was going on. It was built up, let's just say that. And Frazier obviously didn't like it. There was some scuffle / argument that went on, and obviously I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back with Leslie Frazier. But like, the scapegoating's got to stop. Like, the scapegoating is it does nothing, because it's just a repeating cycle that happens over and over again. Like, congrats, you got Dable. But I mean, after that, it's just been a repeating cycle. And as far as like the 12 guys go, that's unacceptable. I don't understand why he threw that in the interview. It just made it sound worse. Like you guys touched on, like, in practice, yeah, sure, you do it all you want, but you had not only that, you had 2 timeouts to figure it out. So like, it's just a huge clusterfuck in my opinion. It's awful. It is awful.
Speaking of scapegoating, how do we know who ordered the code red on Cook out there getting taken out after the first fumble? Because he says that in the post game, I have all the confidence that he said to Cook, I have all the confidence in you. Didn't really look like it if he's the one ultimately giving the orders here. And I mean, I've seen I think John Feenan was in my replies saying something to the effect of, yeah, that's probably what I would do too. But then Fred Jackson's out there saying, no, you do not do that to a running back. You do not do that to his confidence. And had he been out there and been a little more productive than Latavius Murray, who knows what would have happened in those few drives in the first quarter that Cook was taken out of. I mean, Singletary was a fumble machine, wasn't he? I don't recall him being benched in game.
That's the thing that drove me nuts about this is James Cook had 1 fumble previously in his career going into that game, 1 lost fumble, and it was week 1 against the Rams. Like, it was his first game of his career, and he got put into the doghouse right after that too. We didn't see James Cook for like 2 quarters that game, and so
I don't think Gabe Davis going in the doghouse.
My exact point. Where's the accountability for the wide receiver who the ball went right through his hands and it caused an interception, which is it's the same thing. What's the difference? Like,
I mean, the Butterfingers disease was all around last night. Kincaid had one go through his hands. Diggs had one go off his hands. It was all the miscues were Josh Allen's having balls drop out of his hands on a handoff. And when does that happen?
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
he's throwing those corner flat interceptions on a semi-weekly basis, and we got to get that out of him somehow, which should be obvious. Just tear that play out of the playbook. But dropping a handoff, I mean, the miscues were all over the place last night, but only Cook apparently gets an in-game punishment for it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really bench the other guys. I mean, you're not going to bench Gabe Davis. I mean, you have Latavius Murray, like, who's kind of, and I didn't hate what he gave him, but obviously James Cook came at the end of the game, even though that fumble play was a little bit like wackadoo, the 50+ yard run. But yeah, the fault is exactly like you said, is that McDermott is kind of running an uneven ship at the end of the day. It's one thing for one and one for another, and you can't have that. I mean, if you want a good culture and if you want a good subculture, you need to make sure that everyone's getting treated.
Was that not the most Kendall Roy-ass quote you've ever seen in your life?
Listen, this culture is going underground, okay? Subculture.
We need synergy across all our cultures, but we need them to be separate. Yeah, it's just.
Are the Buffaloes one?
Damn it.
One Buffalo sounds right out of the Kendall Roy experience.
Yeah, it really does. That's some Kendall Roy branding. Yeah, it feels like he's lost the plot. Feels like he's lost the narrative, and he's still doubling down. Like even today, he's like hyping up the defense and like talk about how well they've been playing and everything else. It's like you're just covering your own ass, bro. Like that's what it really all sounds like to me. Is like he's out there like talking to Brandon Bean and Terry Pagula and being like, listen, I've been doing all this though. The offense has their own issues. They're their own subculture.
Yeah.
They're their own thing. But I took over this defense and did this. And when you are the CEO, the head coach, all these things, like the buck is with you. The buck stops with you. That's what it comes down to. And so like the blame game, talking about all this subculture, these crazy, just really like.
It's not that he's wrong about the defense being still halfway decent despite all these injuries. It's that he's just putting it out there, reminding us of that we already know. You don't need him to remind us that the defense is actually, despite all the metrics that, say the offense is good and the defense is the problem. We know that the defense is holding all these offenses to somewhere in the vicinity of 20 points. If the offense can get off their butts and score 30, we'd be winning all these games. But for him to come out there and put that in our face, that's our job to look at that and say, Sean, you're doing a great job given the circumstances of your MASH unit and duct tape defense. But him trying to say, I'm doing well, don't look at me. And like I said,
and part of with his comments,
it'd be great.
A couple weeks ago, he was asked like, how much input do you have in the offense? And he basically says he didn't say he had a complete grip on it or whatever, but he said, he imposes his philosophies on how he wants to see it executed is basically, for lack of a better term, what he said. And truthfully, I appreciate his honesty in that scenario, but that was basically the worst thing he could have said. Yep. Because now every time we're conservative, anytime we're doing something kind of rinky dinky or that doesn't feel like we're going full throttle, everyone thinks it's McDermott being conservative. If I was him, I would have been like, listen, guys, my expertise is on the defensive side of the ball. I just put up the headset when they're on the offensive side. At the end of the day, essentially, Josh Allen has been reduced to Michael Jackson or some big performer, like Lady Gaga playing at the Bears Den at Niagara Falls Casino versus playing at a sold out arena. Okay. It doesn't mean that Lady Gaga can't go dominate right now, okay, if she's put in the right scenario. But we got to get her to the right venue. We got to get her in the right state of mind. We got to get her in the right confidence. We got to get her in the right system, which Joe Brady's going to hopefully do. And again, Allen is still responsible here. I know we don't want to go probably full burn on Joshua P.
No, he's next on the grievance list.
Okay, all right. I had a feeling. I mean, we were going to leave him unscathed, but plain and simple, I'll say this: even if it's a bad route by Hardy, even if it's a bad call by Dorsey, the throw before half was just absolutely unacceptable. You cannot turn the ball over there when you're at a one score game, when you've been kind of crawling through everything. Can't turn it over there. Can't turn it over on the first play of the game against the New England Patriots, which was basically the same exact throw, same exact play. It was just a different DB who jumped in there. And you can't be turning it over 4 times at New York Jets to begin the season. Everything else I think is okay. The Jaguars game, okay, you dropped an egg on the road. You lost at Cincinnati. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with all those. It's those two specifically. The starting the game with a pick against the Patriots and the 4 picks against specifically the Jets, obviously coming up this week. So that's a big portion. But yeah, Josh needs to get his head right and needs to get his actions right.
Can I just come to, as much as I want to blame Allen as well, he's going to share a piece of this pie. A little stat that I heard that might maybe not exonerate Allen, but he is leading the league in interceptions, correct? But according to analytics, he's ranked 29th in turnover-worthy plays. In other words, balls that could have been intercepted but weren't. Oh, yeah. He's basically out there standing on his head sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the Gabe Davis ball in the red zone is obviously not on him. You have to not have a pulse to even think so. There's been a couple of those this year.
Yeah. As far as turnovers go, we had a bit of a bad luck because, on average, you lose 50% of your balls, right? Because they're oblong, they take weird bounces, on the Cook run, of course. The Bills have lost 7 of 8 fumbles this year. You compare that to the Dolphins, they've lost only 5 of 16. So maybe it's just been bad ball luck as far as fumbles go. But obviously, when you're throwing the same flat route, the same play every other game, and you just don't learn that the cornerbacks are about to sucker you in, we can put that half of that blame on Josh and half of that blame on whatever offensive coordinator or coach is in his head at the time. But at the end of the day, as much as we can blame Allen, despite the fact that we're not going to cut him, despite the fact that we're not going to trade him, it doesn't mean he's absolved of blame. But at the end of the day, someone needs to get in his face and say, don't do this anymore. Look at what they're baiting you into. You have to see that before you throw the ball.
I mean, that guy Hardy was never open on that play. Like,
when you look at it, there's zero reason that Allen should have lasered that in there. There was never hope in it.
It's arm arrogance.
I wouldn't even make that throw on Madden, bro. Like, there's no chance. Like, I'm trying that. Like, there's nothing. Carson, from your perspective, what are you seeing from Allen? Like, have you seen not enough? Like, do you think there's more that he can do from his side?
I think, the icing on the cake, what I saw was a lack of confidence towards like the past 2 to 3 weeks as the offense has sputtered. And some of that I think comes from him being neutered a little bit, with I think some of the turnovers and then the lack of quarterback runs. But that's all fixed. That can all be fixed, I think, in the coming weeks. All it takes is one good game for a quarterback to get his confidence right. And I think that starts with a lot of the one thing I will say, I was a Dorsey fan, but the one thing he didn't do enough of was the easy throws for Josh Allen, whether it's a bubble screen or it's play action into the flats or just a speed out or something like that. I don't think he schemed guys open enough to the point where it made Josh's job easier. You look at the Shanahans of the world. You look at Mike McDaniel. Hell, you even look at Cliff Kingsbury a few years ago with Arizona. He schemed guys open. I don't think Dorsey did that enough. And, that takes once you get the easy completions going early in the game, that's when you can start letting it rip and stuff like that. And those are easy confidence builders. And I think he needs some of those. That's where I am with Allen. And I think, once you start getting that and you start taking what the defense gives you aggressively, not dumb, that's when the ball starts moving. And that's when the confidence, starts to not only change with him, but everyone's looking at him in the locker room. Like how's he responding? The confidence changes with the team as it goes with Josh. So that's where I stand on that.
Can I make a comparison here that's been often said, but maybe we need to look at it a little bit closer? Is Josh Allen Brett Favre without the early Super Bowl wins or early Super Bowl appearances?
I saw that graphic. Boo.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yes. You know what that graphic doesn't include? And Brett Favre was running around. Josh Allen basically has RB2 numbers every year.
Yeah, except this year.
That's a great fucking point. Time to get our boy moving. Get the pocket moving. Get Jay moving. Go ahead, Bart.
Go ahead, yeah.
Brett Favre threw 85 or 86 games compared to Josh Allen. 83 interceptions to Josh Allen 69. So Josh Allen may lead the league in interceptions since whatever year. He may lead the league in interceptions this year. But like I said earlier, he's at the very bottom of turnover worthy place. So, I mean, maybe he's not quite the reckless gunslinger that Brett Favre was. Maybe he's encountering bad luck. Maybe he's just doing dumb plays that no one's coaching him out of. But I don't yet think that you can compare his style. You can compare his, take the bad with the good as far as touchdown interception ratio. I don't think he's yet Brett Favre, because Brett Favre he would make mistakes in the very late portions of games. Josh Allen's more so making mistakes in the earlier portions of games. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, because I still trust Josh Allen to go down the field and get a game-winning drive. I texted my dad as they were going into that game. I said, Josh, game-winning drive incoming. And then they ran the ball every single time. But it was still, still counts as that. It would have been a game-winning drive for Josh Allen. Still get it. He's done that so many times. We've seen it this year, going down the field in late game moments, fourth quarter moments where they go down with ease. I would definitely agree with that notion about Allen. I think the craziest thing, and this, I guess this isn't really an Allen grievance, but maybe it is, because the running thing is, I mean, I know we talk about it, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's an underrated thing, but this man is like the second best running quarterback in the league behind Lamar Jackson. Like and they've just, it's been gone. Like the creativity, especially part, like there's no freelance runs. Like you see that shotgun play that everybody's talking about on 4th and 1, where he could have hit Kincaid. Obviously, he still could have even hit Shakir. It's a bad throw. He's off balance. It was an inaccurate throw. But I feel like Josh Allen from last year is just turning the corner and diving for the first down. And whatever it is, whether that's him deciding that he needs to be more careful, or whether the coaching staff, like you said, Carson, has neutered him and beat it into him that he can't be taking those chances, it has taken an element away that every single defender in the NFL fucking loves. Every defense loves that Josh Allen is not trying to run them over. The freaking Madden screen, the Madden opening screen when you open the game is Josh Allen running over a linebacker. Like, this is who we
gotta hate
know.
McDermott right now.
100%. This is false advertising. This is bullshit.
No, I mean, it's all great points. I mean, listen, you want to keep Josh Allen healthy. You don't want him to get nicked up. You're not going to have much more to stay healthy for if you keep playing like this and keep operating on offense like this.
Facts.
Let's shout out.
And by the way, sorry, real quick. Never forget that Ken Dorsey's last offensive drive will be a drive where we ran it on every single down and we scored a touchdown.
Irony. Let's send a shout out to Robin Monday, who was Josh Allen's biggest, advocate even before the draft. Living out there in Wyoming, seeing Josh Allen up close and personal, more or less. But quote from Robin Monday: "I'm Josh Allen's biggest homer, but y'all know I will bring down the hammer if necessary, and it's necessary. Stay tuned." So she has a Tea with Robin show on the Bills Mafia Network over there. So if she's going to come down on Josh Allen, we should all be.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel great, I'll be honest. Like, Josh is our guy, and we're going to ride the guy. Nothing has changed in that regard. Has he been acting a little bit out of sorts, a little bit out of whack? I think so, and I think that a little confidence building, just like Carson said, if Joe Brady can be that Josh whisperer, and if he's not getting talked down to by a certain wrestler, we'll be okay.
And he's out there looking disheveled in press conferences. He's gone from a golden retriever to a guy who looks like he lost his golden retriever, and it's very disheartening.
Well, he does not have a dog anymore, so that could be the thing too. I mean, maybe he needs a dog. You need a dog in your life sometimes, bro, or maybe a cat, a pet, parrot, something. Something.
Borrow one of Bruce Nolan's dogs.
Yeah, exactly. The Allen. Yeah, I agree with you guys on everything Allen wise, and I think that if anything, if the switch to Joe Brady is strictly a vibes change, as they're mentioning, like trying to get some energy in there. If there's anything I can say from Ken Dorsey from 1,000 feet view, it does not look like he's like the most energetic and fun guy to be around all the time. And this is a team that, like, Dable was all emotion. It's like they were like they seem like opposite personalities, and maybe that's what this team needs, is just a personality shift. Maybe that is what they mean when they need a subculture within the culture. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a shift of like a different voice, like a more energetic voice, like some juice, like they were mentioning earlier too. Like, maybe that is it.
Working in that subculture with Dorsey was like working with the boss from Grandma's Boy. Adios, turd nuggets.
Exactly. I don't know how you do this, but
I might say the boss from Office Space.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to throw with the flat again. Yeah.
Josh, I'm gonna need you to not run the ball this game. I'm gonna need you to sit back in the pocket and assess the defense.
Yeah. Asking him to come in on a Saturday is definitely just stay in the pocket. I'm gonna need you to just stay in the pocket. Yeah, right there.
Let's get into what we've heard of Joe Brady so far. I turned the phrase with Drew, Schrodinger's quarterback. The idea that a backup quarterback is either better than what you have or worse than what you have, and you don't know until he gets out on that field. Well, how about Schrodinger's offensive coordinator is Joe Brady, at least for us? I mean, he had success with LSU and not so much with Carolina. But my understanding is he went to Carolina under relatively new ownership. He was pushed by head coach Matt Rule to run the ball more, which at times, of course, with the last Ken Dorsey drive that we saw against a very bad Denver rushing defense, at times is advantageous, but we all know that passing is what wins in this league ultimately. But as far as passing goes, how about having Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, and the final season of Cam Newton as your array of quarterbacks that you have over a year and a half or two to work with? Now, Joe Brady was fired over a bye week, and it didn't sit well with players because Matt Rule told all those guys to take a vacation, take a week off on our bye week, go out of town and do stuff. You know what Joe Brady did? He stayed at the stadium with the recently returned Cam Newton, talking with him and looking at film and going over how to best to integrate him back into the system. And that's when he was fired. He was fired. It leaked out on a 1 p.m. after the kickoff during the bye week, and that really did not sit well with players. So he left under very questionable circumstances. I got some little bit of stats here as far as Joe Brady's offense. In 2020, he was ranked 13th in neutral score first down pass rates, which was 50%, and 7th in neutral score pass rates on all downs, which was 60%. And those rates were a lot lower in 2021, 38% and 53% before he was let go, which speaks to Matt Rule, not unlike we're speculating here about McDermott getting involved with offensive philosophy, maybe wanting to create more balance and whatnot. But Matt Rule was definitely doing that. And hopefully he won't tolerate the same with McDermott here, or McDermott will have learned his lesson by now, knowing he's definitely getting a little warmer in that seat there.
Well said. Seriously,
that was
McDermott doesn't neuter him.
That was my biggest thing. There's a lame duck Matt Rule who was not a good NFL coach, and he needed
Matt
to bring
Rule's
somebody,
middle
right?
name is questionable.
So yeah, I'm willing to give Joe Brady a fresh start here and not look at that Carolina experience. Speaking of Carolina experience, Carson, we got one person left to throw on the burner before we go. Any thoughts for Brandon Beane? The drafts, if you go back to the drafts, they're not great the last couple years.
All right, I got a brilliant idea, guys.
Hey.
No. Brilliant idea, though. Let's sign Deontay Hardy for 2 years, $9.5 million to not use him. Because, he's good for returns. That's the only time he sees the field. But I overall, I think Beane's done a pretty good job. But the failure to get a solid wide receiver, too, has absolutely crippled this team year after year. Emmanuel Sanders, he was usable. Gabe Davis, in my opinion, is one of the most overrated, receivers in the league. We touched on him. Not going to be a dead horse there, but the ability. I personally would trade a little bit of, what we have on defense to make our offense just unstoppable. If we can get a wide receiver too and stop worrying about what defensive end we're going to draft in the first or second round this year, that would be nice. And offensively, he attempted to fix the offensive line this year. They definitely improved. I'll give him credit with that. But the skill positions, I still think we can definitely help Josh out with more skill guys, whether it's, another running back maybe who's not playoff Lenny, that's a whole nother conversation. But I just feel we can do better with Josh and provide a little more, help in the pass catching game.
Yeah, Brandon Beane's my guy. Just real quick here. He's definitely my guy. We're gonna ride with him. He's had a lot more hits than misses, but this is a lot of misses in a row. To steal a sports example, that right now Brandon Beane is basically, for this year, essentially, Brandon Beane is Kobe Bryant in Game 7 of the 2011 Finals. Okay, so if we win, it's going to be in spite of what Brandon Beane has done for the last 4 to 6 months. It's not going to be anything that he did to get this group through, because we didn't really bring in any reinforcements unless Linval Joseph and Roswell Douglas end up being lifesavers. They look okay. They've made some contributions, but unless they end up being lifesavers, they're basically going to be Kobe's 6 for 24 in Game 7 that happened in that Lakers win.
Well, let's be fair to Brandon Beane. He's found a few gems in late rounds, guys like Matt Milano, guys like Terrell Bernard. But the problem is they keep coming from everywhere but the wide receiver 2 position. And I think it's safe to say we're all on Jeremy White's wide receiver train, choo-choo, the only other train that never stops around here. I mean, how many other teams like the Eagles and the Bengals are we going to watch either beat us or just run through teams on their way to the Super Bowl that have not maybe 2, even 3 star receivers that can just run all these routes and just cut up defenses on a weekly basis? And we've just got Diggs and a bunch of guys. Kincaid's finally, coming into his own once we got out of the 12 offense. But ultimately, you need another downfield threat, and you need another downfield threat whose route tree isn't going to be like the parting of the Red Sea, and nobody's going to go through it. Apparently,
I will say that my biggest issue is everything you guys are saying is the team building aspect and not paying enough attention to the offensive side of the ball. They drafted a lot of running backs, where a lot of people will be like, "Why are we using these high assets on running backs?" And guys who aren't on the roster anymore, who are now producing. Zach Moss and Devin Singletary having career days on different teams this year is a pretty I don't know who that's damning to, if it's the offensive scheme or anything else, but it's tough to see. But obviously they had talent, they have the ability to do it, so you can't fault Beane, I guess, but you can fault him with using the asset on the position. My biggest thing is you look at these Cam Newton rosters, and the offenses they put out. And it feels like those Carolina fans are probably complaining about the same things. They didn't address the offensive side of the ball really with Cam. They would go get running backs. They weren't drafting wide receiver ones at the top of the draft to go help him out. And it feels like they're doing the same thing with their generational quarterback and then telling him to be a drop back passer. And it's maddening when you see, like you said, the Eagles who have Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, or the Bengals who have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And even if they're not going to be able to keep T. Higgins, like 5 years or 4 years of T. Higgins brought them to a Super Bowl. Like, it's gotten them to be a consistent contender every single year. You see the year that the Ravens this year finally addressed the wide receiver position. They go get Odell. They draft Zay Flowers to add to Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews. And Lamar's having the best year passing of his career. Like, there's just the Dolphins. Yeah, you have Tyreek Hill. You have Jalen Waddle. Like, these are – I'm the same thing as you, Carson. I've been the biggest proponent last year. Like, your fastball is Josh Allen. You have to add to your fastball in this league. Like, you can – if McDermott is this look what he's doing with no talent on this defense right now. We're talking about how the defense is playing well and everybody's hurt. So why would you not have been just amassing talent for your offense all these years then? It's like it's just so backwards. So I think Bean is kind of just, he's trying to thread a needle, and I respect him for, taking the swings that he's taking, because at least he's taking swings, signing a Von Miller, or, trying to keep around, I guess, a Dawson Knox when at the time that we thought Dawson Knox was going to, keep growing into a role. Like, I think when Dawson Knox signed, people weren't mad at that deal. They thought he was going to turn into a top 5, top 7 tight end. That's clearly not going to happen anymore. So I appreciate taking the swings. I'd rather have an aggressive GM, but that's what happens when it's that thin and the margin's that thin, and now you're paying the quarterback $50 million a year. You really have to hit. And so I think Bean, he's a great scout. Obviously, that's his background. I think he's going to do a lot of self-scouting this year, doing it right now. And going into this offseason, we may see a different philosophy from them. But I wonder how much of it has been battling with the head coach and their philosophies too, and how much Bean has conceded to what McDermott's wanted, too. And I don't know if he can do that anymore. But I don't know if McDermott got hired first. So if McDermott goes, is Bean going to? Like, how does this even?
The chicken and the egg. Definitely a weird situation here.
Like, Bean can't fire. Like, it's all going to come down to Terry. Really, I feel like Bean is
agreed. I think ultimately only Terry can fire.
Or Josh goes into the office and is like, "We can't. This team cannot do another year with this." I feel like those are the only other options.
Is Bean living under the curse of Wyatt Teller, where he's too afraid? He's giving guys second chances that maybe shouldn't, like Gabe and Knox and Kyer Elam. That he's a little too gun shy to let go of guys that he can see are limited, but he thinks, well, they may break out later, and I don't want to look like a fool again.
The curse of Wyatt Teller is the real deal. I don't want to be under that.
It's a bad one.
All right. I think we aired out a lot of grievances. I think this is good. I feel better.
A little better.
Well, I don't feel better about the Bills, but I feel better that we got in here, gentlemen.
One little more aspect of, speaking of airing of grievances, we're seeing some former players and current players airing some grievances. Former player Quentin Spain implying they're firing the wrong person. Here's a guy who's out of the league 1.5 years after the Bills cut him after week 2 or 3, and found a place on the Bengals, ended up in a Super Bowl, and then ultimately missed a block that got Joe Burrow sacked that pretty much sealed the game for them. So I don't know if it's his place to say that. I mean, as far as, Sean McDermott goes, we've got our problems with him, and I think we would all be fine if he was let go at the end of the season or whenever. But you got players, to his credit, whatever that means, like Shaq and Jordan Phillips, leaving for greener pastures, more money, and then coming back saying, hey, you don't know what you missed until it's gone.
True.
Very fair.
One last thing before we go.
On Diggs' whole thing.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. So one last note I want to leave on. Carson, I'll start with you. We'll go around the horn. Did Stephon Diggs tell Trayvon to tweet that out?
That's a good question, man. He can't just tweet that out of thin air, though, right? Like, there has to have had to been conversations in the past about something along the lines of Diggs was frustrated. Where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't think he's going to get traded. I think once his contract, runs out, they'll probably
$31 million in dead cap next year.
But besides,
they trade him.
What's that?
Sorry, it's 31 million in dead cap next year if
Yes.
they trade him. So that's seems like a death knell to
Yes.
a team that already is low on funds.
Yeah, that won't happen. I can't see the tweet coming out of thin air. They've had to have had a conversation before in the past, whether it was like 50% joking that's now kind of turned serious. Like I think Trayvon, obviously, there's a reason he tweeted that. I'll just leave it at that, I think.
I agree. There is a reason he tweeted it, and the reason is because he's a big idiot. I originally was where Carson was, but I think of all throughout history of family members and, you know, everything tweeting from sport events. It's all not like calibrated. It's all off the cuff, and they're all. And he did not do Stefan any favors by saying the next morning that like Stefan made Josh. That was a terrible look for him.
I don't think that was as much of people were taking that more as a shot to Josh Allen. I don't think it was that. I think it was more defending Diggs, just being like,
he was advocating Diggs. He wasn't, but it was the definition, literally the textbook definition of a ricochet shot.
For sure.
Arthi?
I mean, no one knows him better than his own brother, so maybe he knows. I hate to think that he's just speculating what's on his mind rather than reaching out to him and saying, you know, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings right now? So, and I would hope that there might have been a conversation, you know, outside of social media where, you know, Stefan, you know, over a text pulls him aside and says, hey, you got to calm that down right now because things are as tenuous as it is. I don't know. We shouldn't be concerned with injured players on other teams and what their feelings are. We should only be concerned with our guys in-house.
I hope Stefan Diggs has a media availability this tomorrow. That's all I'm saying. I want to hear because silence is deafening. We haven't seen an Instagram story with Josh Allen or anything like that. Like, so maybe they did have a private conversation and everything else, but they've done things in the public before too. So I guess we shall see. But that's it for this show. We paid the bills. Thank you all. Thank you, you three, for joining. This has been a great time getting our Bills vent session out. I'll be back on Sunday, Bill leaving. I'll be there and I think they'll beat the Jets.
I'll be ready to be heard again this Sunday for sure.
Hey, there we go.
Take everything you know and just like Sheldon Cooper in The Gift, just throw the papers up in the air. None of it matters. All those stats that, you know, the week 1 through 4 and the week 5 through whatever currently is, you just toss them out the window. We're going to start a whole new season next week, I think. That's
true. It's a 7-week season at this point. Let's see how they roll it out. They got the toughest schedule left. We're going to learn a lot about this team, good or bad.
Insert Michael Scott at the shareholders meeting. What was it? 6 weeks, 60 points, or like 90 days, 90 points. Yes. We're going to get this company around. And limo lady, we're going carbon neutral. That's Joe Brady. We should have that ready. If they have a big game, Joe Brady is Michael Scott at the shareholders meeting.
Hell yeah. That's what I love to hear. All right,
but we
can't say anything else. Yes. Have a good one, folks. Go Bills.